meantime, so it
Sir,
will
I've
be
started recording. You can start the screen share and start, sir.
okay. How has been the response by the staff this time, the doctors?
No, I think this is a very good group. They're very quite proactive also in sometimes.
Okay.
I'm glad every year we are getting good groups.
Response.
And you will be so happy and proud that you will have students
Okay.
becoming allergy specialists
Okay.
in
Very good.
almost all the states of this country
Very good.
after this course is over.
Okay. Excellent. Nice to know. Nice to know.
Where especially in the northeastern states,
Okay.
well, there are several of them, and I wish they commence their allergy practice as soon as possible.
What is the background of the doctors who have recruited this time? They're all MBBS, and last time many postgraduates were there, ENT specialists, dermatologists.
No, we don't take any participant if only MBBS,
Okay, they're all postgraduates.
postgraduates.
Okay,
Majority of them are ENT surgeons.
okay,
Then we have pediatricians and
okay.
chest physicians. And
Okay.
there are a few general MD general medicine also.
General medicine, fine.
So would you like to start, sir?
I can, yeah.
Dear participants, I'm very happy to introduce you to Dr. M.S. Ravindra, a very dear colleague and a specialist in Bangalore, very well known for his professional work and also service through Lions Club. He has done thousands and thousands of surgeries, and he is the medical director of Karthik Netralaya in the southern part of Bangalore, and he's very well known and is a very, very nice, gentle person, which is something very, very nice. Dr. M.S. Ravindra here now.
Yeah, good evening, my friends. It's nice to interact with you through Zoom. Though I'm missing the excellent breakfast, lunch, which is offered by the team headed by Anand. Usually he conducts in a beautiful, resort, which is outside Bangalore. Once I had to stay back overnight. It was out of the world. So you're all, including me, we are missing this excellent hospitality by the team. So I welcome you to Karthik Netralaya. My greetings from there. Myself and my daughter, Dr. Deepthi Armeda, have compiled few slides here, which will probably update you on eye and the allergy. So I'm going to cover a little bit of signs and symptoms, which is not extremely important for you people, but you should be able to diagnose allergy versus infections after the end of the disease. What are the differential diagnoses? And what's more important from your point of view is the management. I'll cover in some of them. Karthik Netra is a hospital, is an eye care daycare center. We have probably all the facilities in eye care under one roof. That's in south of Bangalore. As you all know, the eye is a marvelous structure. 70% of all the sensory now endings end up in the eye. Cornea, can you see my cursor? I'm going to use my cursor. It's across the slide.
Yes.
That's a cursor. And that's the cornea, which is the most sensitive part of the whole body. It has got the highest number of nerve endings. And the nerve that go across the cornea do not have a myelinated sheath, so that the transparency of cornea is maintained. 50% of the cortex that you see in our brain is involved in the visual process. That's important God has given. And we should take care that we are not going to spoil our eyes during our lifetime. It's very easy to spoil them. Eye allergy is extremely common. As you know that in the whole world, 6 crore people have, nasal allergy, nasopharyngeal allergies. Out of that, about 40% of them, 40% of the people who come with nasal and throat allergy have eye allergy, associated eye allergy. That's important. It said that genetically predisposed individuals are more likely to have allergies. Am I audible?
Yes.
Fine. Okay. that's the intensity of eye allergy. So whenever ENT surgeon works on the nose and throat, it's very important to see that the eye is also taken care of. 20% of the population have some kind of allergies. Allergies are usually which affect the eye bilateral, and that's an averted lid. If you just tell me if you know the anatomy, that's the eyelids, and that's the upper lid, that's the lower lid. What is projecting here is because the upper lid has been averted. It's turned up and out so that you see the inside portion of the conjunctiva. Whenever you examine the throat, you see the pharynx, you see the the parts inside the nose. But similarly, you'll have to avert the lid. To learn how to avert the lid, I'll give some practical instructions just to see what's happening on the back of the lid. Much of the allergy is not seen elsewhere. It can be just limited to the back of the upper lid. The back of the upper lid is called tarsal conjunctiva. The white portion of the eye is covered by very, very thin skin. It's very similar to the skin of the, the rest of the body. This skin is transparent, so you don't see them, but it's called conjunctiva. What you see white is the sclera. Conjunctiva covers it. So conjunctivitis is what we call, the conjunctivitis, inflammation in the conjunctiva. The one which is present on the globe, white portion of the globe, is called bulbar conjunctiva. This is on the back of the lid. See, that's the lid margin. This is the upper border of the tarsus. And this is called tarsal conjunctiva. This is the one which gets most affected in various allergies. Then that's the lower lid. If you pull it out, you'll see the back of the lower lid. That's called the tarsal conjunctiva of the lower lid. This is the tarsal conjunctiva of the upper lid. Tarsus is a fibrotic plate which gives strength to the upper lid. Am I right? So you can stop me anytime and ask questions. I think all of you have, you can express yourself. I'm not able to see your faces, but then if you can voice, I can always stop it. So associated hay fever, rhinitis, asthma, eczema, which you know, which are all there. Can eye allergy produce blindness? Yes. The couple of diseases like vernal catarrh, atopic catarrh, and the treatment portion of it. Many times steroids are used. You prescribe steroids once and patient keeps using it. So those things can cause blindness. So allergy can cause blindness. So symptoms, the classical symptom is itching. If the itching is there, the patient rubs the eye, then there is an allergic component. Allergy can be primary allergy, or it can be allergic associated with infections like bacterial infection, or it can be associated with any other primary eye disease. So, but if itching is there, there is an allergy to something which you'll have to hunt what is the allergy for and then start treating it. If you just treat the primary disease and do not treat the allergy, patient will not be happy. So itching is number one cause, and the eye rubbing. Itching is associated with eye rubbing, and this is bad. Eye rubbing can cause blindness. So this is something which you'll have to understand. Rest of it you're all aware of. And what are the types of allergy? Allergy can be type 1 or a combination of type 1 and type 4. You're all familiar with that. This is IgE responding, IgE sensitive reaction. Seasonal and perennial and acute, all are type 1 hypersensitivity, while atopic keratoconjunctivitis and vernal keratoconjunctivitis, we call it as V, are type 1 and type 4. So basically, we classify them into simple, vernal, atopic, giant papillary, flectinular. Flectinular keratoconjunctivitis is not allergic. It is related to tubercular proteins or something like that, and contact dermatitis. We'll cover few slides of them. What are the symptoms? Symptoms of all the allergy conditions. Allergy conditions present like this. This is congestion of the bulbar conjunctiva. There is watering. There is lid edema. This edema of the conjunctiva, as you can see here. These are all the things, and these are the symptoms of any allergic symptoms, especially the acute conjunctivitis. I think somebody has to mute the lid. Mute. And there are known to present with exacerbations. It worsens and it heals. It worsens and heals. This is very common in allergy. Worse when the weather is warm and dry. In rainy season, it comes down. This is acute conjunctivitis. And cooler temperature, it goes away. So there is a family history of one of the allergic conditions. And you're all familiar with that. I would like to, apart from all these things, but that you're all aware, I would like to give a classical description of how the allergy presents. Many times it's because of eye drops, skin ointments, and creams. It becomes a vicious circle. Many people, there is an allergy and itching, they apply something on the skin, they apply additional drops, they apply something else which into the eye or outside like oil and all. That again worsen the allergy. So eye drops, you can be allergic to any eye drops for that matter, or preservatives in the eye drops. So this is, you should always remember. Cosmetics, the first treatment I give whenever somebody comes with an allergy, stop all cosmetics in the face, including soap. Soap also can give rise to allergy. So for some time they can use something else, just plain water or something. And many times I stop all the drops. When the patient comes with severe allergy, not healing with anything, just stop all the medicines for about 2 to 3 days time and see what is the baseline picture of them. So the drops actually change the picture. So you can do that. And the other thing that you should remember is nickel and chromium, which is always a part of spectacles, especially when you take a metallic frame spectacles. They all have nickel and chromium, and they are plated. Nickel and chromium is inside. They're plated with some other stainless steel or gold or silver, whatever it is. But when it gets exposed, when the shine goes away, the nickel and chromium gets exposed, and that touches the eye and can give rise to allergies. So this is something which you'll have to understand. And soap, shampoo, and detergent, and including the clothes, inner clothes that when you're going to wash, that's a lot of detergent is used. So you can ask them to wash them without detergent for some time if you're suspecting them. And so it's always a sudden onset. This moment he was all right, next moment he's driving in a car, reaches office, there's a sudden onset. This is something which is unique of acute allergic conjunctivitis. And seasonal are related to seasons. Many times it's in summer when you're exposed to grass. In spring, when flowering is all started, it may be pollens from the tree or weed pollens like Congress weed, all that can produce. So that's the classical picture, swelling. There's not much of purulent discharge from the eye. In the morning, there can be mucoid discharge. You ask them what kind of discharge you had in the morning. Is the lid sticky? When it is sticky, it's infective. If lid is not sticky, if it is just swelling like this, otherwise eye is clean, very little watering, little mucoid discharge collected in the medial canthus. So this can be a seasonal allergic conjunctivitis. And it varies from place to place to watch to what contents of the thing that the person is allergic. And perennial is round the year. Seasonal means something which is happening during a particular season. Perennial is usually due to mites, house dust mites, animal dander, and molds. I think of all the infections, it is known that 70–80% of all the conjunctivitis is because of the mites, dust mites. So how do we manage that? Manage the treatment is, I'll explain that, but these mites are there, and keeping the house clean itself will minimize the chances for perennial acute conjunctivitis. So as you can see here, that's the difference. This is present all the time. This is because of mites. This is something because of the pollens. So seasonal and perennial, you can differentiate by the when it appears. This is called chemosis, especially when the irritation is there, and this edema of the lower conjunctiva. This is patient really worries when the whole thing can come outside. So this is one of the features. Another feature is papillae. I'll explain about the papillae a little later. These are the signs of the conjunctivitis. What is a papillae? Papillae, this lid, this is a lower lid margin, upper lid has been everted. Okay, turned off. How do we avert it? Take a cotton bud. The averting lower lid is easy. Just pull it and you see the lower fornix. This is called fornix, or lower tarsal conjunctiva, lower bulbar conjunctiva. The meeting place is called fornix. Okay, now you keep a cotton bud on the upper lid, upper part of the upper lid. Ask the patient to look down. You can see the patient is looking down. Ask the patient to look down with the head keeping straight with both the eyes open. And when you are doing that, hold the lid lashes and pull it up against the fulcrum of the cotton bud, Johnson bud. So the lid gets everted. So examination of the inside, this is outside skin. This inside is very important. That's a foreign body there which can present as an allergy, but then now you take out the foreign body, patient is relieved of the symptoms. So examination of this is very important. As you can examine here, there are so many papillae. These are called papillae. What's a papillae? This is a lymphoid hyperproliferation of conjunctiva in response to an allergen. There is a central blood vessel and lot of cells all around. It's bulbous, and that's what you see there. So presence of the papillae is a characteristic feature of the allergy in the eye. So what's a papillae? Another condition is follicle. This is also seen, but more often seen in viral infections, toxic reactions to some chemicals, and in chlamydia, like a trachoma. So this, let us not look at it. This will be like grains of rice. When you see rice particles, cooked rice, that's how it you see look there. But papillae has got a central red core. You can see the central red core here. That's a vessel surrounded by this. This is papillae. That's follicles. You can differentiate them. Coming to the vernal keratoconjunctivitis, is a very common disease. It's got both type 1 and type 4 hypersensitivity. It's both eyes. Boys are more affected than girls, usually seen at the age of 7, 8, 9 years, young children and adolescents. And there's a family history of atopy. This is a very characteristic feature. There can be eczema, allergic rhinitis. There's a very high morbidity, and counseling is extremely important because the disease will linger for 5, 6, 7 years, or sometimes even a decade or two. So you'll have to call the mother, you have to call everybody at home and explain them the child has VKC and how to manage it. Otherwise, many times they misuse steroids in the eye. It can be very bad, as you can see here. The classical feature is a thread-like mucus which gets collected in between and comes out. Child will be removing threads of mucus from the eye. It's called mucus hunting or mucus, fishing. So this is a very characteristic feature of vernal catarrh. Eye rubbing is very, very strong. They have, and symptoms can go up, and this thing. It's got a palpable form, a lid form, and a glow form. Palpable form has got these things on the back of the upper lid. The glow form, the bulbar form, has got gelatinous picture. If you see it, you can see thick gelatin-like membrane which is covering it. The cornea looks smaller, and child keeps on rubbing the eye. And there will be tranta spots, these white spots, white swellings. This is called limbus. Limbus is the junction between the cornea and the sclera. You see the white spots, they are called tranta spots. These are nothing but eosinophil aggregates which appear there. They can be mixed form of lid and bulbar, and they can be, so years later, it can become blackish in color, and pits can appear. And, all these things are, this is a very sad state. The whole family is suffering because child is always rubbing the eyes. So these are the corneal signs which I do not want to. This is called a shield ulcer. We look at the slit lamp and diagnose that. But one of the characteristic feature of vernal catarrh is keratoconus. Can you see from the side picture? The cornea should be normally round in. Can you see this? It should be round in shape. But here it's protruding. You can see it's bulby. It's coming forward. The vision drastically reduces in keratoconus. Keratoconus is related to rubbing that is seen in VKC. Children keep on rubbing. Cornea is only 500 microns thick, half a millimeter thick. It's very thin. So then if you keep on rubbing, it becomes weaker and starts protruding. So the main treatment for the VKC is instructing the family that the rubbing is bad for them. So atopic keratoconjunctivitis is very similar to the vernal catarrh, but it's in adult form. It begins at any age. There is a genetic predisposition, and this picture is very similar to vernal catarrh. As you can see, it can really become bad because these are the people who keep using ointments, Vaseline, and all kinds of medicines into the eye, and end up not only with atopic keratoconjunctivitis, but also there is an associated allergic reaction, so as you can see here. One of the classical thing in atopic keratoconjunctivitis is scarring. Scarring is very bad. That will reduce the tear secretion and goblet cells in the eye, which lubricate the eye. You can see when you stretch it out, you see a lot of scarring that happens in the fornices. Lid is very heavy. Sometimes it's so heavy and so proliferating, the redness can come out. The whole thing can look like a bad tomato. So these are very bad cases, and treatment also is extremely difficult and long term. As you can see here, these are all atopic keratoconjunctivitis. It's seen in adults. They can also have stem cell deficiency. A good number of them, 16% will develop keratoconus. There can be an overlying, very, very confusing picture of herpetic keratitis, and they can also get very early cataracts. So we have to go and operate on them to improve the vision. So this is a bad status, but then it can be easily treated if he is followed up by an eye specialist. And these are the how it worsens, the cornea gets affected, giving rise to the bad loss of vision. Giant papillary conjunctivitis, again like vernal catarrh. It looks like vernal catarrh, but the papillae are huge papillae here. They are usually related to contact lenses. Those people who use soft contact lenses, or those people who soft contact lens today are disposable. Every 1 month or every 15 days, you throw it out. The rates have come down, and buy new one basically to avoid this condition. Long drawn use of soft contact lenses and dirty RGP lenses, hard lenses, can give rise to a condition like this. The basic treatment is discontinue use of contact lens in these patients. Very, very bad, because these patients wear contact lens continuously, otherwise they are blind. So it's very pathetic to explain to them that they have to live without contact lenses. Sutures, sometimes, there are surgery happened and sutures are protruding like that from the surface, tiny sutures. The tips of it can cause this, because this thing. Ocular prosthesis, some people wear artificial eyes inside the eye because natural eye is missing. That also, if it is old, they can give rise to this. This is basically a combination of type 1 and 4 reaction. That's a contact lens, as you can see here. The patient has managed the contact lens very badly. These are all deposits, protein deposits and lipid deposits. And they are deposits, contact lens has not been cleaned. When you turn the upper lid, you'll see a lot of giant papillary reaction because of the contact lens, the thing. So proper maintenance of contact lens is very, very important. Yeah, basically that's the remove the offending, whatever is causing it, kindly remove it. And the patient can go for LASIK. LASIK is a very modern way, very safe way of rectifying the power that is in the eye. You can do a LASIK treatment. So contact dermatoblepharitis is something like contact dermatitis you get elsewhere, but this is actually, again, the patient starts using all kinds of creams on the face or some ointments. Many of the ointment base itself can lanolin or paraffin, something it has, and that can itself cause a contact blepharitis. Basically, you'll have to avoid the offending medications, lanolin, parabens in ointments, atropine, neomycin. Neomycin is one of the very popular drug. Ophthalmologists will never use neomycin somehow, but other physicians, dermatologists use a lot of neomycin. Neomycin is #1 cause for the contact dermatoconjunctivitis in the eye. There is a medicine, neomycin, along with other antibiotics, which is a favorite medicine for general practitioners, that can give rise to. Sometimes preservatives like EDTA, benzalkonium chloride, thiamorsol can give rise to the allergy. Best is to stop everything and put him on a short treatment of systemic antihistaminics. You will see within 3-4 days, a lot of improvement can occur. Itching is, I've covered this. Yeah, diagnostics, you are more familiar. As far as the eye is concerned, I do refer a lot of our patients to Anand whenever we are in dilemma or whenever the disease is chronic. But many times, primary treatment is management of signs that you see on our clinical examination. The specific management, it comes to the systemic disease has to be investigated. You check whether there is any thyroid disinfection. Superior limbic keratoconjunctivitis is not an allergic disease, but presents like allergic disease. And collagen vascular disease and rheumatoid arthritis. These are the diseases which you'll have to rule out whenever you suspect allergic conjunctivitis. So you make a list of all the medicines. I ask them to bring all the medicines, whatever they are using on the face, all cosmetics, they have to bring it and show it to you. Check the environment if it is all right. History of eye rubbing is, I keep telling it because that's the way you look at the thing. The amount of pressure the child is applying on the eye with the palm on the eye is much lesser when you apply with the fingers. This is bad, okay? This applies directly pressure. The pressure can be as high as 5 kilograms per square inch. Imagine the eye is square inches. The amount of pressure is applying either with this or with knuckles. With knuckles, they rub like this. The amount of pressure, actually somebody has measured, it can be 5 kilos. This can be half a kilo pressure on 1 inch. So this has to be absolutely avoided. If the child has to rub it, then encourage them, show them how to massage the eye this way, the palm on the eye, and just massage. You'll get as much relief, but this kind of massage has to be avoided. This is what I was trying to tell you. This is bad with knuckle. And the best is ask mother to keep some handkerchief soaked in water in a couple of them. Or ice should not be placed. Gel, I don't recommend. Handkerchief soaked, put it in the refrigerator in a box, and child will run to the refrigerator, keep it on the eye like this. The handkerchief soaked with cold water, not frozen, but in the lower compartment of refrigerator is probably the best way to relieve the itching in the eye. And reduce pollen by various ways and avoid moisture and mold. Mold, if you see whenever the rains and it goes away on the walls and ceiling, you see black patches. I'm sorry, fungus patches, and that will be releasing fungal spores that you can allergic to that. So entire house has to be inspected by the family, and maybe you can do a waterproofing of the house. Leaky walls has to be then. Dehumidifiers is very good, and AC will reduce the humidity. That'll treat the fungal spores. And mattresses, carpets, curtains, upholstery, they're like foot mats. These are the ones which have a lot of mites, and that has to be looked at. Vacuum cleaning and bedspreads, pillow covers, foot rugs, they have to be cleaned. And whenever you walk into a room from outside, if it is smelly, that means there is some kind of spore activity in that room, and you'll have to look into that. When you're traveling, put on AC, car air conditioner, car filters have to be periodically changed. Air purifiers, including in the car also, there is negative ion emitters. You can put it in the car, which neutralize the positive ions that carry the dust. And the air purifiers, especially the HEPA filters, there are standalone rooms, air cleaners are available, which are very cheap now. It used to cost 50,000-60,000. Now it costs 10,000 rupees. This is worth considering in very bad allergies. So pollen you'll have to reduce, and these are all you're familiar with it. I'll just explain one by one. Mast cell stabilizer are histamine and histamine receptor antagonist, inflammation treating with corticosteroids. And let me go one by one. Lubricating eye drops, there are a lot of off the shelf or over the counter drugs are available. There are many of them. They're called artificial tears. Pick up the one which has no preservatives, and you can put them in the refrigerator somewhere here. So it's cool. All the drops can be put somewhere there. And this will dilute the, whenever you come from outside, inside, you put a couple of drops so the contaminants get diluted. And vasoconstriction, these are very, very popular. Clearin and all that. Immediately the eye becomes white, but then they're strongly not recommended. Any vasoconstrictor should not be used, in my opinion. And they give short-term relief from redness, itching, and clearing, but they come back with rebound conjunctivitis. So I wouldn't recommend them. Mast cell stabilizer, Cromal or sodium chromoglycate and iodoxamide are there, but alone we are not using it. These won't act in acute stages. If you know that seasonal conjunctivitis is coming in March, you can start about a month or two before and use that 3 times a day, but then we have stopped using chromoglycate anymore in the eye. And topical antihistaminics, pure antihistaminics are also very common, but then again, we don't use this. They block histamine receptor 1 and 2 receptors. Systemic antihistamine rarely is used. When you stop topical medicines, you can put the patients on systemic, but we rarely use systemic antihistaminics, eye medication as an eye allergy. So dual acting drugs are the most popular drugs that are used today, and they're very good. Olopatadine is my favorite medicine, and they are available easily in 0.1% concentration. They give a symptomatic relief and prevent recurrences. And it's again, because it is dual acting, it's antihistaminic as well as it stabilizes mast cells. It has to be ideally started, if it is seasonal one, about a month before you can start. You can even put once a day. Once at night is good enough. It's safe to use it on long-term basis, no harm. And in acute disease also, it can work, unlike there are 3 medications that are available in the market. As you can see, a bepotostin is H1 antagonist. It's not used as much. Olopatadine antagonizes both of them. And alcaftadine is available, which is becoming popular. It inhibits it blocks the H3 also, but H3 is not found much in the eye. So my favorite medicine in ocular allergy is olopatadine. And topical NSAIDs are not used, especially the The Nepafenac is not used at all because long-term use of Nepafenac can thin the cornea, can weaken the cornea. So I use flurbiprofen. It gives very good relation. These are basically anti-inflammatories. They block the cycloogenase pathway, and they're very good. But I don't use it on long-term basis, but I do use it in severe allergic reactions. And corticosteroids are sheet anchors. You can always start with corticosteroids in ocular allergy, but you have to explain them. Even it doesn't look like a corticosteroid, but you'll have to tell the parents that you should not use it beyond what you've advised. It's always nice to start with fluorometholone, which is a surface acting anti-inflammatory, and use pure medicine. There's no infection, so you don't have to use FML with an antibiotic, FMLN or something. No need. Use pure steroid and use it in maybe once or twice a day and combine with olopatadine. What I suggest, olopatadine, I give it in the night time, FML in the morning in mild diseases. And it acts, as you know, on arachidonic pathway, extremely effective. So it's addictive. Once you prescribe, patients do not come back. They use it for 3 years later. They come back with that. Dexamethasone, prednisolone, I rarely use it because they're potent. They get into the eye and cause cataract and glaucoma. So patient education, as I said, is very important. Acetylcysteine eye drops ointments are available. Eye drops are available. It reduces mucin secretion. If mucin is too much, rarely we use that. Immunomodulators are of extreme use. We use a lot of tacrolimus ointment, 0.03 specific eye ointment is available now, and that we use a lot. Whenever in the chronic diseases, there are 2 ways of using it. It's highly irritating when you put inside the eye. When you put inside the eye, pull the lower lid, ask the mother or father to put as little as a rice grain, not more than that. As little as a rice grain inside the lower fornix and ask him to, it's highly irritating. So many times what we do is we ask the mother to take it on the fingertip, wash your hands, take little ointment on the fingertip and smear it and then apply it on the lid margin or even on the lid lashes and lid margin. So you can apply it outside. Some amount of it goes inside, that's good enough to treat. So that way irritation in children is avoided. So tacrolimus is a very effective way. You can use it on long-term basis, and that's steroid sparing. You don't have to use steroids if you use it. You can use it for 3 months, 6 months, continuously. So injections are also there. In very bad disease, we give triamcinolone injection, or we can excise the tarsal. I show some of the photos. We excise them. We graft with amniotic membrane. We graft with buccal mucosa onto the eye. Very bad conditions, we take into surgery. So this slide, you can take a photograph or save it. And this shows all the medicines that are available in the world and what is the concentration and pediatric age range. You can use all of them in pediatric age range. But as I said, instead of using so many of them, limit your usage to olopatadine, as I can see here, and rest of it is not necessary. And ketorolac is, I don't use ketorolac, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. I use flurbiprofen. Ketorolac is bad for the cornea on long-term use, but flurbiprofen is extremely safe. And many times I use 1 drop of flurbiprofen in the afternoon, 1 drop of FML in the morning, and nighttime I use olopatadine. That gives excellent combination medicines. So to summarize, it's a very common disease and it's increasing. Increasing in environmental allergens, you can see smoke, carbon, all that, pollen is all going up. And immune buildup is very important. These children have to have a good modulation of their immune system so that they are better off. And good understanding is very important. And compliance to the medicine is very important. And these people have to come back for a checkup. And every time they come, you'll have to check the vision of the patient, because keratoconus rapidly produces a minus power. Imagine a person is 0 power now. After 1 year, the patient has got -3. 3 months, 4 or 6 months later, it's -6. It may be child has keratoconus. Keratoconus is very easy to diagnose, but it can be missed by a routine examination. So if the power is increasing rapidly, you'll have to suspect the keratoconus. And appropriate use of medications, long-term use of medications. Many times parents start the medication. When the child is better, they stop. And again, the disease comes back in about 2-3 weeks' time. So appropriate use, long-term use of medications is very important. History is very important. Listen carefully to the patient and treat the associated conditions. Just eye treatment is not enough. Patient may have so many other, patient or family may have other diseases which needs to be taken care of. And The child usually, what I've seen, they come to me and then after 3 months, the child is not better because nobody starts on heavy steroids initially. So the child goes to another doctor, they land up in, homeopathic treatment, Ayurvedic treatment, then they come back to you 2 years later. This can be prevented by educating the family, and it's a financial burden. It's certainly a financial burden to the family, and we have to be very familiar with the disease itself and the treatment. This I've covered already. Okay, with that, I would like to thank Anand and Pradyum. Any questions? I'll be.
Yes, there are a few questions already in the chat box.
Okay. Dose of olopatadine and lubricating eye drops can be used any number of times, but it's need-based. There's no specific dosage for it. You can use it once a day. I would recommend you to use a couple of drops, 3-4 drops, as soon as you come home from outside. So any pollen that you're carrying, any contaminants you're carrying gets washed away. Blink a couple of times, put a drop, blink a couple of times, put a drop, blink a couple of times. Pick it up in the fridge and put it into the eye. That gives everything, and follow it up with cold packs, with a handkerchief or a small napkin. You can put it in a box and put it inside the fridge, and put some drinking water. Drinking water means temperate. You put a bottle inside and you drink it directly. Never put ice directly on the skin. Pour into it and keep it on the eye. So that's a very good way of relieving symptoms. And olopatadine once a day dose. Once at night time, before sleeping, you put a drop, and that's all. You don't have to use second time. And what is the other one? Can long-term steroidal nasal spray cause ophthalmic complications due to the steroid? Any steroid. We have seen a lot of, this is a very good question. I would like to point out systemic steroids, inhalers into the bronchi, and especially the skin ointments. Skin ointments, dermatologists prescribe, and the patient uses for the next 2-3 years without going back to him. Skin ointments, many times they are all fancy names. I don't even know what kind of ointment it is. I'll have to go to Google and check. Many times these are skin ointments. Skin absorbs steroids left and right. And in Bangalore, it's an allergy city. So we see a lot of people applying skin ointments which contain steroids, and that produces cataract, irreversible cataract. That produces more cataract. I can operate in 10 minutes and give back good vision. But then they also end up in a condition called glaucoma. Glaucoma is a condition where the eye's pressure goes up. Normally, the eye pressure is less than 20, 18 to 20. About 20 is abnormal. In some people called normotensive glaucomas, even 16 can be abnormal. So when the pressure goes up, there are no symptoms, absolutely no symptoms. Patient is very happy with the vision. Patient is very happy with the how he feels. But the glaucoma pressure which goes up is damaging the optic nerve, and they continuously lose the peripheral vision. Front vision is very good, but side vision, as I'm covering it up, it becomes a narrow tunnel vision, and patient will not realize because that happens slowly. So every time a person with allergy, even if it's a child comes, we check the pressure of the eye to see whether steroids have caused any problem. So long-term steroids of any form, oral, we have seen steroid oral tablets given in, even for COVID has raised the pressure to, normal pressure is 20, pressure can go to 40, 50. Within 3-4 days of taking. Classically, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks time. If I start steroids now, 2 to 3 weeks later, the pressure shoots up. And there are no symptoms, eye is fine, vision is fine. But when we check it, it's phenomenally high. So we consult the physician, we'll see whether the steroids can be reduced or any non-steroidal can be utilized, or we start him on temporary glaucoma medications. It can. Nasal drops, again, gets absorbed heavily into the eye, and we'll have to look at how long can we use steroid and olopatadine. Olopatadine can be used for months and years. It's absolutely safe, but steroid is very limited. Steroid is based on symptoms. And I normally start with, if it's very severe, you can start with betamethasone or dexamethasone 3 times a day. And within 3-4 days, you'll have the symptoms down, taper it down. Along with that, Olopat once at night time, you can start steroids 2 to 3 times a day, my classical treatment, and avoid all cosmetics on the face. That's my classical advice to all these patients who have eye allergy. And then I reduce stepwise based upon the symptoms. And for some time long, a month or two, I'll keep them on. Fluoromethalone is 99.9%. I will not cross fluoromethalone. I put once a day fluoromethalone in the morning and once at night olopatadine. And after about a month or 6 weeks, I stop fluoromethalone. Or sometimes, if it is severe initial presentation, I make them alternate days. I make them twice a week. I make them once a week. It all depends upon clinical response to the treatment. But olopatadine once at night time, you can continue for 6 months or 1 year, even if the symptoms are gone, no problem. Sir, does vernal keratoconjunctivitis improve with age? Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's usually when the child becomes adolescent, there can be a spontaneous remission, spontaneous clearing of this thing. Around 10, 12 years, I expect it, but that's exceptional. Sometimes it continues forever. Even adulthood continues, but in majority of them, it subsides by that age. So initial presentation, you'll have to be very, very clear with the mother that this is a disease which doesn't harm the eye on a permanent basis. It can cause some dry eyes on a long-term basis, but then treatment is more hazardous than the disease itself. They are the people who use a lot of steroids in the eye. Then are blood tests and skin prick tests useful in diagnosis of allergic disease? Certainly yes. Certainly I would say yes. But then as we can see the lesion, like, what do you want to see? You want to see histology of this. We can see histology, or we can see the magnified findings of the eye. We have set clinical patterns based upon history, presentation, season, and all that. We diagnose it. If you have diagnosed straight away and if your patient has responded to treatment, we generally avoid the systemic checkups, but whenever the child is deviating from normal response, child is following all the advices, a lot of my patients are treated by Anand, and we certainly take the help of Anand for all these things. I do not know what he does magic, but the patient comes back with excellent treatment. So this is useful certainly in non-responding cases. That's what I would like to put it as. I think that ends up all the.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you are an excellent teacher. You explained everything in detail, very, very well. And I think the participants are very much benefited. And the questions were good. And you have explained everything. On behalf of all of them and on behalf of myself, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's pleasure working with you, Mr. Anand, Dr. Anand. And I always love these programs. And it's even better because I'm sitting at home without any efforts and talking to all the people. And I'm Dr. M.S. Ravindra. I am sure you will have clinical situations. You take liberty. You can take my mobile number. I can share it here. And you can always send your pictures if you have a doubt. Anand, that's my number. You can. I'm on WhatsApp. You can always send a clinical photograph. We're all very familiar with the counseling on.
And the hands-on training, we have not completely dropped it.
Okay.
We are hoping for a proper time.
Okay.
Once this extraordinary situation sinks in and becomes quiescent, we would like to have you come there and be with the participants. They will have the benefit of you being with them and interaction.
Very good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All the best to all of you, and keep learning. And learning is a process which is continuous thing, and don't stop learning. Till you have picked up 10 new points every day. That's my advice to everybody. At the end of the day, count how many new points you learned, and 10 new points you should incorporate in your life. From my age.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
And many of them have expressed their thanks and gratefulness in the chat box to Dr. Ravindra. Thank you very much. Good night.
I'm leaving. If there are no more questions, I'm just leaving. Good night, and have an excellent training program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Good night, sir.